A few weeks ago, I put a tiny camera on my cat's collar with the aim of revealing his secret life. What it instead revealed was that Ralph really wants to go outside. Since moving house a year ago, Ralph's been an indoor cat along with Bella, but both spend hours a day sat at the windowsill, staring longingly into the garden. The response to that video was a complete mixed bag, with half my audience saying it's cruel to keep a cat indoors, and the other half claiming it's irresponsible to let them outside. In fact, here in the UK, 90% of cats are outdoor cats, whilst in the US 90% are house cats. So why? Well, the biggest argument for letting your cat out is freedom. They get a virtually unlimited area to explore, have fun and act naturally. It can't be very fun being cooped up indoors. I mean, we all know that after the year we've just had, and your cat is way happier outside. But on the other hand, the great outdoors can be incredibly dangerous. There are cars, predators, catnappers and angry farmers or neighbours who sometimes deliberately leave poison around. And what's more, cats aren't natural, at least not to the UK, and can destroy local bird and wildlife populations. My decision was a combination of these factors. Especially after losing his brother Tom, I'm so much more protective of Ralph, plus we only intend to live in this house for another year or so. Because of this, I've so far kept them inside, but that doesn't really seem fair of me. So I'm going to build Ralph and Bella a Catio. A Catio, or cat-patio, is basically a large walk-in enclosure similar to a chicken run. It means the cats can get some fresh air whilst I get peace of mind, knowing they're both happy and safe. Now my garden is precisely the size of a postage stamp, so we don't have a lot of room to work with, and since I only rent this house, I'm not allowed to drill battens into it, which is how you'd normally build something like this. Instead, it must be entirely freestanding, making things about 1,000,000 times more difficult. My workaround is to cement 6 posts into the ground to provide structural support. Next, I'll build a wooden frame across the front, incorporating a large door, and then build a roof frame on top. Finally, I'll cover the entire structure with mesh to complete the enclosure. So here's a cool build montage. That's the posts all done. The front's all built, now onto the roof. And in only 25 seconds, it was done. I should do everything using a montage. I'd attach wire mesh to the walls and roof, and somehow manage not to mesh it up. With the basic structure finished and cat-proof, I thought it was time to give Ralph and Bella their first lungfuls of fresh air in almost a year. I'll add all the cool climbing bits in a moment, but for now I just really want to get them outside. And with a paw into the unknown, Bella was out, and any reservations she had gone, bravely exploring her new garden. Immediately she started scratching on the fence posts. Once Ralph realised what was happening, he came to watch from the doorstep. It took him just under a minute to venture outside, which admittedly is a lot less than I thought it would. His senses were in overdrive as he sniffed everything, and his ears and body reacted to every sound. He kept going back inside briefly, just to feel safe before coming out again, and before long, he was exploring every inch of his new Catio. And I mean every inch. I think it's time we build him something proper to climb on. But then it rained non-stop for over a week. Ralph wasn't brave enough to even step a paw outside, and I don't blame him. The British weather can be pretty unpleasant. So once it eventually stopped raining, which yes, does occasionally happen, my first job was to add some shelter. I nailed these corrugated roof sheets in with these strange giant nails, which oddly enough are supposed to be hammered in at the peaks, not the troughs as you might expect. I only covered one corner as I didn't want to make it too dark, but hopefully it should give some protection against the British weather. Now it was time to build the adventure playground. The plan is to cement another post in the ground in the middle to attach a circular platform. It will be connected to a larger platform in the corner, with a bridge across to a high-up platform in the other corner. It will all be accessible using a climbing wall on the right. There'll also be 3 platforms on this left wall, staggered to make it easy for Ralph and Bella to climb between them. I got started with the cement straight away, and then miserably failed at their pencil and string trick to draw a perfect circle. I ended up printing one out and cutting around that instead. Next I cut the highest platform to size and screwed it into place using brackets.
Listen to the noise this screwdriver makes when it's struggling.
I then attached a diagonal wooden beam for more support. The platform in the other corner was done in a similar way. I thought it was a good time now to attach some lights to the roof before I obstructed everything further and made it too hard to get the ladder in. It was actually really awkward as there wasn't enough room to properly swing the hammer, and I hit my thumb about 432 times. But when they were done, they looked marvellous, and I was even more excited to see them at night. But back to the adventure playground. I built another shelf on the left, and since it was getting late, decided to varnish what I'd done so far and call it a day. The next morning, I screwed 2 planks of wood together using battens on the back to make the climbing wall. I attached these super colourful climbing grips, and then mounted it in place using hinges to get the angle right, plus an extra beam of wood underneath for support, since it's pretty heavy. Next I added a small walkway between this and the centre platform, and then a large walkway between the 2 back platforms. Everything was really starting to take shape now.
Now I actually want to put another shelf between these two for this.
I realise it's highly unlikely the cats will ever sit in it, but I had to at least try. I cut a hole in a sheet of plywood and screwed it in.
How cool is this? I cannot wait for Ralph and Bella to never use it.
And then I put a shelf directly underneath to create some staggered steps to get between all 3. Finally, I decided the climbing wall was probably a bit too steep, so adjusted the angle and added a final platform to encourage the cats onto it. The Catio was entirely finished. Ralph was first up, bravely negotiating the climbing wall and heading straight to the highest point. He quickly realised the birdwatching opportunities the spot offered, and stayed there until he fell asleep. Eventually, he made his way back down the wall, using the grips like I hoped he would. Bella, meanwhile, tried her best to avoid the grips. She's been a bit unwell lately, it's nothing at all to worry about, but she didn't fancy staying outside for too long, before once again doing her absolute best not to use the climbing grips, and heading back inside. I encouraged Ralph onto the staggered platforms, although he took his sweet time. Ultimately, he just wouldn't jump to the final one, so you'll have to wait to see him in the bubble dome. I'll include it in a future video if either he or Bella sits inside. Maybe don't get your hopes up. For now, he went for another climb. And before long, the roof sheets were proving their worth. Ralph spent much of the day in his new favourite spot. I think it's safe to say he's a fan of the Catio, and it looked nothing short of magical at night. With the evening now drawing to a close, he climbed down and came indoors to sleep, satisfied, tired and incredibly happy. Ralph and Tom, they're my favourite little pussycats. Bella too, she's my favourite loaf of bread. It started back with Reggie and his Golden Gate Bridge. Subscribe for all the wonderful adventures ahead.